Rinzai Zen, the kind of Zen that I practice, is traditionally associated with the samurai sect in Japan. But I ain't much of a samurai. I'm a guy in a scarf with a bit of a cold. I was born and raised in the suburbs. I've lived mostly in cities. I've never killed a man with my own hands. However, we're going to talk about the samurai spirit today and why it is helpful, useful, and necessary for one's spiritual life or Zen Buddhist practice. We're also going to talk about the time a nun threatened me with a knife. Okay? We're going to get there in a little bit, but we're going to start with an email I got from a patron. So my friend on Patreon wrote me a very beautiful email. So he says, Shozan, apologies in advance for the long message. Now what he does in this long message is not waste my time. He sets the context for his request, which is a desire to know how to set boundaries. And he talks a little bit about his life. I'm pretty naive when it comes to my relationship to other people. That's where my problem starts. My brother is an addict, and my baby mama, then he says, I can't find a more efficient way to say that. And by the way, she's not the same person as my wife. My baby mama is mentally unstable, and otherwise so he says, my brother is an addict, my baby mama is a mentally unstable person, and all manner of desperate people come and go in my life. So he says, I spent some time in a Catholic monastery and some communities in my early 20s, and I encountered all types of desperate and mentally unwell individuals who seem to flock to such places. And when I was at home, I'd find myself having homeless people I had helped out or lonely elderly types calling my phone, trying to get my attention or more help. He says, I've wondered for a long time what attracts them to me. Even in high school, the social pariahs and outcasts would all cling to me. So there are certain people that attract the type of person that smells a lack of boundaries. They attract boundary sniffers. Are you the type of person that attracts boundary sniffers? Are you the type of person that has boundary issues? Are you the type of person that easily creates boundaries? It's worth asking yourself that. Maybe there are some people in your life you're able to create boundaries with, and other people you are not. So it sounds like my friend here is the kind of person that generally doesn't create strong boundaries. I mean, he has, it seems, homeless people finding him and asking for money. He has elderly types calling his phone, trying to get attention. He's got issues with his baby mama, who is mentally unstable. He's got issues with his brother, who's a drug addict. Okay. And he says, I've wondered for a long time what attracts these people to me. Even in high school, I've already read that, I've always felt a lot of guilt about creating boundaries with people. It's most difficult with my ex and my brother. I'm doing better when they're not in my life, but I feel guilty for not helping, for having to make decisions like not giving my ex access to our kid because she's negligent, and it upsets my daughter to even hear mention of her biological mom, and not lending money to my brother or trusting him around my family and possessions. He feels guilty about this. He says, what is your experience with setting boundaries and the guilt that follows? I guess I feel like ideally I'll keep meditating and one day find a way to help them. I gotta stop right here. One day, I'll meditate my way into a solution for a completely different person's problems. 9! Nicht! Newt! He says, but how do I act in the meantime? I know the clinical response, I suppose. The clinical response is, if I let them drain me, I won't be any good to them anyhow, and it's worse for everyone involved. But I suppose it always helps to hear about others' experiences with these sorts of things. So the most telling part of this email to me is this last part, where basically there is no solution to the problem of boundaries except erect temporary boundaries where you can hold people off until you are able to manifest enough energy and insight through your spiritual meditation practice to properly help these people. And I want to say right out of the gates that I think there's another way of looking at this problem. Today, we're going to talk about boundaries. I think I've told the story before, but I'm going to tell it again quickly. So, when I was a monk, it was about, I think 6 to 10 months into my tenure, I was put in the kitchen for a winter Seichu training period. I had to cook. One Daiseshin retreat in the heart of a very cold and miserable winter. A lay nun, came to practice at the monastery, and she and I were put in the kitchen together. I was new. She was a fantastic cook. She actually had co-authored one of the more famous vegetarian cookbooks of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I shan't mention her name. She was probably mentally unstable. She looked a little bit like Joyce Carol Oates, actually. So Google Joyce Carol Oates and get a picture of her with these enormous glasses, and then imagine Joyce Carol Oates with her locks, her curly locks shaved. That's kind of what this nun looked like. God bless her. Now, she had it out for me. Like the very first night that we were working on cleaning, managing the kitchen, and taking out the compost buckets, getting a list of recipes together for the week, right? A plan to feed the Zendo. She started to bully me. Like at first it was just like, I thought she's being a little bit firm. Okay, fine. So I put up with it. Do you see? I accommodated her energy. And we did dinner, everything was fine. We came back afterwards and she became a little bit more abusive. She would order me to do something. I would do it. And then she would holler at me because I didn't do it right. You needed to do it like this. This is how you do a kitchen. And so I would do it that way. And at this point I thought, okay, this is going to be my practice for the week. I'm going to have to put up with some shit. Okay? But as the night progressed, it became clear to me that no matter what I did, no matter how much I accommodated her, no matter how much I received that negative energy and absorbed it and didn't give anything back, but simply tried to dance with the demon before me, no matter how much I did this, she was going to come at me harder and stronger with more rhetorical and energetic violence, which at the end of the night almost seemed to be on the verge of becoming physical. This bitch was gonna murder me with a knife. So here's what happened. At the very end of the night, she pulled a drying towel off the drying rack, and there was a hole in it. And she had been shouting at me up to that moment for a bunch of stuff that was, I don't know what. It was a bunch of reality. There were bruises on the bananas, which was my fault. There was dust on the floor of the walk-in, which apparently I had put there. Okay, so she's yelling at me, and then she pulls this towel off the drying rack, and she says, and I'm pretty sure that that someone in this kitchen is responsible. And she pulls a knife off the magnetic rack and she's pointing at the holes in the towel. She's saying, I'm pretty sure someone is coming in here when I'm not looking. And she's yelling at me like that. And is poking holes in this towel with this knife. And then she's pointing the knife at me and shaking it. So it was at that point that I realized that maybe I needed to make some boundaries. And I'm not very good at boundaries. I wanted to accommodate her. I wanted to be the nice guy. I am so bad with conflict. I am so bad with it. I don't know how to do healthy conflict very well. God bless this nun, she forced me to. I had to go to the head monk. I had to tell him what was going on. Then he had to take the matter to our teacher, who always signed off on the officer positions for retreats, and my teacher had to then make a decision. His decision was, get her out of the kitchen. Got her out of the kitchen, put somebody new into the kitchen with me. It was a really important and difficult lesson for me. And the important and difficult lesson was, sometimes you gotta fight. You just gotta fight. Sometimes you have to set a boundary. People make you do it. I learned how to establish boundaries at the monastery because I had to. For one thing, my teacher, this samurai Zen master, was always poking and prodding and looking for your boundaries. And I had been warned about this before I went to the monastery. For example, my teacher, I felt, had too much of a hand in the personal lives of some of his students. He would say, oh, you and so-and-so become married, good couple. And a lot of his students would say, okie dokie. And then 4 years later, there'd be some nasty, messy divorce, right? My teacher said this sort of thing to me all the time. He would interrupt our Sanzen practice when we were supposed to be doing the important work of asking and answering koans, and he would say, oh, new student, Yannicka, very, very pretty. Maybe not so pretty, but you not so handsome. Maybe you two good together. I remember one time he did this, and I just sat there, looked him in the eye, full respect, because I so respected what he was doing and what we were doing together that I honored it in that moment. And I kind of waited for what he had just put into the room to clear, as though the man had released a foul scent into the space. And God bless him, he got this. And he never came at me again with another suggestion for a paramour. One thing I learned at the monastery was this: if you can't set boundaries, you are going to be a victim. That is the definition of victimhood. Someone couldn't set a boundary. I've always thought of boundaries as a way of managing love. Going back to my friend from Patron, and he has to deal with a brother who's a drug addict and an ex who's mentally unstable. And he said, maybe I'll be able to meditate and eventually that will help me figure out a way to truly help them. I guess maybe we should close on this idea of helping others. I think maybe that's something we should pause on. Can you really help someone else? Maybe. I've been helped by people. I was helped by my teacher. But the help that he gave me was absolutely a case of unconditional, overflowing love in many circumstances. I mean, I truly experienced unconditional love from him. And I also experienced very clear boundaries with him. He would set these boundaries with me. I mean, there were times when I came to him all weepy-eyed. And one time I remember I was really done with Zen practice. I mean, dude, I had been up since like 2 o'clock in the morning shoveling snow. And it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I had a full day ahead of me. And I had to go in there and drink tea with him. And I was just, what am I doing with my life? And I went in there with this, and I looked at him with these weepy eyes. And I think he said something to me, and I needed so much from him at that moment. I had given my life to him. I'd given my best career years and my childbearing years. This DNA was not going to be reproduced because I'd given myself to this man and his teachings. He owed me something, right? And I brought that energy into the room in the most honest and clear way possible. And I expressed it somehow to him, you know. And all he did was, he like signaled to his attendant, said something to her in Japanese, and she came back in the room with a bottle of whiskey. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and he poured this whiskey, 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, he poured this whiskey, and he gave me the freaking shot glass. That was his answer. Buck up, buttercup, okay? And whoo, what a teaching, right? What did he tell me in that moment? You're choosing to be here. You don't have to be here. I can't make the decision right for you. I can't really help you. I can't help you make this right. Yeah? It's not my job to make your life right in any way, shape, or form. You make your choices, I make my choices, and we meet where those choices meet. But you're responsible for your life, bucko, as Jordan Peterson would say, bucko, and I'm responsible for my life. So too with your mentally unstable ex or your addict brother. You can't really help them. They're on their own. You can ride shotgun with them through life, but you can't take the wheel for them and hit the gas and start steering for them, getting off at certain exits you think they need to get off at, etc. Like that's a real trap that nice, good, kind-hearted people make. They make that trap of thinking that it's their responsibility to help someone that they love. In those moments, it might be worth asking, what does it mean to help? Loaning money to your drug addict brother ain't gonna help him. Or letting your mentally ill ex hang out with her daughter when her own daughter doesn't want to hang out with her, that's not going to help either. You can set a boundary with kindness, compassion, and clarity. Most of all, clarity, that sword of wisdom that Manjushri manifests, the sword of fire that cuts through the BS, cuts through illusion. But of course, to get there, you have to be clear yourself. I mean, for example, when I was in the kitchen with that nun, it took me a long time of abuse, all evening of abuse, before I could get clear on the fact that it was going to do neither of us any good if she ultimately stuck a kitchen knife through my neck. And so I had to go to the head monk and set a boundary. And some people just plain need boundaries. Would that we lived in a world where motherfuckers got it and didn't need to be told where the line is. But some people do, and it's your job to set that line. You're a person too. You have to take care of that person because nobody else is going to do it. And if you compromise your integrity, if you let one person get taken advantage of because you don't have the clarity or the courage to help that person, that failure of character will have a ripple effect in your life. Okay? And then the person I'm talking about you need to be responsible and help and take care of is yourself. I think you get what I mean. If you want to, speaking of boundaries, one of the boundaries I have to set for myself is I offer these teachings for free, but I ask for help. And it's not totally easy to do, but it's also honoring the work that we do here on this channel by giving you the opportunity to support it. What I'm saying is you can go to patreon.com/showsonjackhobner and you can support this channel there. There's also a PayPal link in the video description where you can make a one-time donation. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you to my patron for his kindness, his warm and open heart. And to him, I would say, protect that guy, right? Not tough love, but strong love, clear love. You can set an example to the people that you are creating boundaries with. I'm telling you, there is nothing that is a greater lesson to someone who has spun out of control in their life. There's no greater lesson no greater love than you saying, you can get spun out, you can cause trouble for yourself and for others, but not for me. Because this is what compassion looks like, this is what wisdom looks like, this is what sanity looks like, this is the boundary that I'm setting. Okay, thanks folks. Ciao.